personal background, yeah, I wrote here all the big titles, but my personal background is I'm a software engineer. Got bachelor's degree in Tartu University and master's degree in Tallinna Technical University. And actually, I'm doing my PhD studies also at the moment in Tallinna Technical University. My area of interest, or like my study where I focus, is data embassies and the way how we actually can run like a country without borders or without territory. Is it actually possible? I mean, like one of the examples look at the moment is for example organization called ISIS. If you think about it, it's like the people who actually share the same ideas. You can say that those ideas are not the best one, but they share them, and they actually like act or try to behave as a country, but actually they don't have any territory. And there are also other examples. For example, there's a country that actually that belongs to United Nations, for example, already a long time ago, that actually doesn't have any territory. But this country is actually recognized by 132 different countries worldwide. So those are the areas I'm studying and trying to understand how to solve those questions. And also e-Residency, of course, is a big part of that. So if we have time, I can talk about that also. Yeah, so but the whole life I've been involved of doing software or trying to run a company, different companies. I'm extremely proud that zero to run, for example, has become like so extremely, I say, like for my eyes, it's like always it's like a perfect company. I mean, like in December I visited the Boston office of Zero Turnaround, and if you ever have a chance to visit that office in Boston, just go there because it's an amazing place. But coming back to me, I'm still active of doing software analysis also. You see my work in e-Residency project, or the project that was very extremely hated in Estonia, so-called 1,000 euro reform. You know, the thing that companies have to declare their invoices and payments that actually go over 1,000 euro. They have to declare them. So that reform actually is coming from my office. I mean, so yes, please hate me, but the result that actually what we have at the moment, VAT tax is the second largest income for Estonian government, and that income has increased more than 12% during the last 5 months. So compared to the previous years, the same period. So it's an enormous amount of money. And for example, if you would like to double our policemen's or rescue workers' salary, that's actually possible, because I mean, so much more money has. Basically, we have cracked the grey economy. At least the VAT fraud cases, those are cracked at the moment. So yeah, I'm still doing some engineering also. Today's talk, the first question was, who am I? Or who is responsible for IT in Estonia? I should explain you the way the Estonian government actually works. I mean, coming from private sector, for those who don't know, my last position was that I was for many years, mostly close to 10 years, I was the CEO of web media. And after, CEO, I was like 5-6 years. Before that, just system analyst. But and after that, after we joined our co-company and web media, then it became Nortal, and then we switched with Priit Alamäe, so he continued as a CEO of Nortal. And after selling my shares, I got this non-competition clause. I couldn't compete in private sector for 2 years. I mean, like, if you get a bunch of money and on the same time you have all the connections, I mean, like, the buyer needs you to get away from the market, because, I mean, like, with a bunch of money and knowledge, you could just create another company. So I was pushed away from the market, and the government noticed that, so the minister and the first secretary of Ministry of Economic Affairs actually invited me to join the government and start to lead Estonian like ICT area. And I mean, like, if you are working for the private sector, you don't understand how it actually works. I mean, like, for example, it's really, if you think that politicians in Estonia influence a lot what happens here in Estonia, then it's wrong. They don't. I mean, like, for example, in my area, in ICT area, the minister, who is the political leader in the ministry, actually influences my work, I think, less than 5%. So how it actually works in the government is that, of course, there is a so-called parliament or Riigikogu, who accepts all the laws and all that stuff. But I know you film me, and I shouldn't be so open, but at least I don't know. I cannot say about this new Riigikogu or new parliament, because they just have been working less than a month. But the previous one, I mean, like, there is no action coming out from Riigikogu. They are more like reactive. Laws are passed there, so there are some discussions, but there is no such a thing that the parliament actually initiates like some kind of new innovation. And for example, in e-voting area, the voting committee actually is responsible towards the parliament, not towards the government, but the parliament. And the parliament should initiate that, for example, to rebuild to rebuild or redevelop a new e-voting system, but they're not doing that. So there is no initiatives coming out from Riigikogu. But the most active part is so-called government, or it's in Estonia, and the ministries are actually most of it we work for them. So there are 11 ministries in Estonia. Yes. So, and every ministry is run by the minister, who is a political person. Most probably has zero background about the area they are running. So, I mean, like, mostly they are lawyers or like some kind of background of economic affairs or something like that, but no, not in details. So on the minister, there is the first secretary, who's not political. And they run the house. I mean, like, they basically are responsible. For example, in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, there's a lady, very smart and strong lady, and that lady is responsible that the ministry actually works, that all the salaries are paid, all the people in the right places, the security works, the IT support works. So like the mother of the house. And also she's responsible to push laws here, and then in action. So she's basically responsible to keep the machinery working. And now the interesting part starts. So under the first secretary, there are deputy secretaries. And every big area has their own deputy secretary. And I am the deputy secretary responsible for ICT. So if you ask me who runs the ICT in Estonia, yes, I do. Who to blame? Me. Everything doesn't work. I have some excuses, of course, but it's me to blame. But I mean, like, now it's very important to understand the real life. In Ministry of Economy, there is ICT. There's also energy. There is transportation, economical growth, and internal markets. So there are 5 big areas in the Ministry of Economy. And every area is led by like my kind of people. So, and I'm not a politician. I don't belong to any party, so it's purely like salary-based job, and I just took it because I was like pushed away for a couple of years from the private sector. I had to work. I had 3 choices: go abroad, but have small kids, stay at home, and do nothing. Yeah, was a choice, and or work for the government. So I was lucky when I sold my shares in Nortel. I actually earned enough money, so actually I can afford working for the government. I mean, like so yeah. I mean, like, come on, it's not the best salary job, but I don't complain because it has been an extremely interesting trip. But my point here is that under me, I mean, like, directly I only have 2 persons or 3 persons who actually respond to me. But altogether, I mean, like, the whole area, as I also have to keep my eye on cybersecurity field, basic components like X-Road, ID card, all that stuff, Estonian .IT government portal, etc. I mean, like, all in all, in ICT field, if you think about policy making, etc., it's like around the government communication, Estonian Post, because I'm ICT, and C is communication, so it's telecoms and post. Post is also like communication, historically. So, and parcel delivery, for example, the price of parcel delivery, the speed of parcel delivery, that's also my responsibility. So all in all, it's 180 people. So in the whole government ICT field, I mean, like, if you count ICT specialists working for the government, it's around 1,000. So so I have like all 180. But the same amount, the same type of amount is in transport, for example. If you think about, I don't know how it is English, like Maanteamet. I'm like the institution who's responsible for the roads, for car registration, for licensing, all that stuff. So it's not only the ministry, it's also the like under institutions that we have to keep our eye on. So here is also like 300 people. So, and then I think there's one first secretary, and we all push our new ideas and new laws here. And there's one minister. Okay, now it's 2 in the Ministry of Economy, but still like hundreds of people working, pushing information. So basically, even if you are a Superman, it's impossible to actually coordinate it like on a political level. So that's why I'm saying like that the minister actually influences less than 5% of my work. So if I'm not doing enough, or if things in IT field in Estonia are bad, yes, it's me to blame. It's not the minister. And that's why this level, the deputy level, is so important. And before me, that position was empty. I mean, like, it was created in 2007, and they couldn't find the person to work there for 5 years. So yeah, and if you think that, for example, if from any other ministry, in culture ministry, in agriculture ministry, just choose any ministry. If there is an area that interests you, and if that area doesn't develop, it's not because of the minister's will or the first secretary's will. It's just because the deputy is an idiot. So always, I mean, don't blame the politicians. If your field that you are interested in, if that wheel doesn't develop, it's the deputy who to blame. Because they actually run the show. They don't have time for that. So that's important to remember. So before you start blaming me for everything, you need to see this picture. That's Estonian government IT. Looks like spaghetti. But actually I'm proud of this picture. Why I'm proud is there has been working really smart guys, I think 20, 15 years ago, who actually put in place all the basics elements of Estonian government IT. The thing that we actually have distributed architecture, the thing that we actually have point-to-point connection. So, I mean, like, if you have seen this picture, this like looks like some kind of service bus. So this picture for tech people is misleading. The real picture is this. I mean, like, if this green dot needs information from that dot, they actually have direct connection. It's not some kind of service bus they go through and then no. They actually have direct connection. And all those green dots are registered in central registry, and also all the black lines are registered. So we actually know if you take this dot away, or if this dot is under cyber attack, whatever happens, we actually know what will be influenced and what happens next in our systems. So, I mean, like, I just heard VMware CEO talking in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, that even though, I mean, like, companies try to build their system in a way that they actually basically hide their security behind the firewalls, that actually even big companies should start thinking about distributed architecture inside the house. It was lovely to hear that, because, I mean, like, smart people 20 years ago already had developed that in Estonia. So what it actually means is that in Estonia, every institution, every house, every ministry is responsible for their own IT. So yes, it's me to blame, and I know that every time there's something wrong, people actually tag me in Facebook. So I'm starting to think I'm just dropping off from the Facebook. but it's actually, I'm like, Ministry of Internal Affairs, everything that is connected with population registry, everything that is connected with people documents management, all the ID cards, passports, that's their area. If there's a problem, yes, you can tag me, but it's the Ministry of Internal Affairs problem. So I cannot influence them. I only can do that, say to them that, fix it. And if they say, then I don't have any like other like I can't push them otherwise. I mean, like, if they don't want to do it, they don't do it. And that's the big problem in the Estonian government at the moment. I mean, like, the situation is so that I mean, like, if you think about private sector, if you think about banking, if you don't like one bank service quality, you just say, like, okay, it seems that our relationship, I mean, like, the customer and the bank has an endpoint at the moment, and then you change and you take the next one, next bank. But with the government, they have a monopoly. If you don't like our services, even though if they don't work, go to Finland. I mean, that's the position of monopoly. And the government has a monopoly, and if you have a monopoly, then you have low motivation. And that's a huge problem in the Estonian government at the moment, that the things that were developed, for example, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and I mean, like, even if the result was complete rubbish, they don't want to change that. Why? I mean, like, yes, we know that it's hard to use, but I know, if you don't like it, go to Finland. That's the attitude, and that's a problem, and that's how I've been trying to change during the last 2 years. And I actually have quite strong angle to motivate them. That was one thing I understood before I went to the government. Estonia uses mostly structural funds money that come from Estonia, come from EU. So it's a support money that the EU pays for developing countries. And every country can decide by themselves where they actually spend that money. And Estonia has decided already, like 6-7 years ago, that partly this money is spent on ICT development. So if you think about all these fancy things like New X Road or like digital prescription system, whatever you name it, I mean, like, they're mostly developed using EU money. So what it also means is that whenever there is EU money used, the license type is the license that money demands is that basically everybody could use that software for their own purpose. I mean, like, even though if for example, Norton developed a system even though if the European money was used, for example, the system was built for Ministry of Internal Affairs, it doesn't, I mean, like, and if you want to use that, you can apply for the license and you will get it. I mean, like, so the Ministry of Internal Affairs or not, they cannot keep the code just for themselves. So if the question was like, why don't Estonia use open source more? I mean, like, yes, this is not an open source, but if you want to get an access to the code, that's in most cases doable. So yeah. So, but as most of the money I used comes from EU, my people, not me, but one of my divisions actually controls those investments. So if the Minister of Internal Affairs, for example, says like this to us, then we can motivate them in a way that we don't give them any investment money anymore. So that's the way how we actually can, for example, force different houses to follow, for example, overall cybersecurity rules. So yes, it's my team who creates the policy, ICT policy like open data, cybersecurity, I don't know. I mean, like, we don't tell to the ministries that you should use Java or you should choose .NET. I mean, like, we don't say that. I mean, like, it's up to the houses what kind of technology they want to use. And there are not so many hard rules, but yes, there are a couple. For example, for authentication and authorization, you should use like tools that are already created, like ID card, mobile ID, things like that. So, but there are not too many rules that we push. But we more push the attitude that we only give you money if you really want to make those services, applications better, or you really want to innovate. Then we give you extra money for investments. The amount's actually huge. I mean, like, for the next 6 years, together with basic components, like X-Road and ID cards, like the common components, those components we call basic components. Together with basic components development, the government will invest more than 140 million euros during the next 6 years into the market. So what it actually means is, even though there's already hard conditions to find a quality or qualified workforce from the market, it becomes even worse because the government becomes even bigger, how you say, tender maker, or like, we buy more than we did during last years. So we are also competing on to get like better resources, etc. So and we try to keep it balanced, and I totally understand that nobody wins from another salary war, because if there is a salary war, then the potential for export, for example, decreases, etc. So we have to be balanced here. So I have spoken 35 minutes, and I'm still on the first slide. So that's why I said like it takes at least 3 hours to explain all. So I don't know, I mean, like, so mostly, yes, the policy, the rules are under one ministry that actually are connected with ICT, but there are not too many laws connected with ICT. If you start talking about data protection, for example, that's not ICT anymore. That's Ministry of Justice. So if you want to change the laws, for example, that are connected with ID card, that's Ministry of Internal Affairs, because ID card is a document. So I mean, like there is no IT law in Estonia actually. So we are like bits and pieces everywhere, like, but not the full picture. But what we mostly do, we try to motivate and rebuild the stuff what has been created in Estonia. And one of the most interesting things, I think, that actually interests you, is to try to push through so-called no legacy rule in Estonia. So it means that in Estonia, in the Estonian government sector, there shouldn't be any meaningful system that is older than 13 years, 13. So we basically push houses to re-engineer and rebuild the stuff, even though if the applications are actually working. Don't care. You have to. And there are so many reasons why you should do that. I mean, like, if you think about, like, like most faces who are familiar from the audience actually worked in our company in healthcare area. And according to the OECD, Estonia has the best healthcare systems in the world. But most of those systems were built like 10 years ago. And if you think about that, I mean, like 10 years ago, there was like no touchscreens. I mean, like storage was extremely expensive, no voice recognition. So people's habits actually has changed. I mean, like I like to use those kind of hardware or devices, but I cannot do it at work, because at work I still have a system that was built like 10 years ago. Cybersecurity was nothing 10 years ago, now it's everything. So there are so many reasons. I mean, the laws have changed, the processes have changed, the habits have changed. So many things have changed during the last 10 years. So why are we stuck with the old stuff? Wipe it off and rebuild it. And our first calculations actually show that it's actually cheaper than taking the old MacGyver tape and then starting fixing like the application. I mean, like you might not like Estonian IT, but we actually have introduced a new type of Big Mac index to the world. You know what is Big Mac index? Some of you don't know. Big Mac index is the thing to actually charge, I say, the quality of not quality of life, but quality of income in every country. I mean, like McDonald's has their restaurants all around the world, and the Big Mac burger is basically the same in every country. So if you compare the Big Mac price in different countries, you understand that, for example, in Norway, the Big Mac burger costs 3.5 times more than in Estonia. So we can compare that the average, I mean, like income for Estonia is at least 3.5 times smaller than in Norway. So it's a simple, very simple index, but it reflects quite well, I mean, like where you actually are, the countries actually are with their income. So, but we have introduced a new one to actually judge the complexity and inefficiency of countries. I mean, like, if you're an efficient country, you don't need too many laws, and you can automate, and I mean, like, IT gets more costly if there are more rules, right? If it's like more and more complicated systems, if it's more spaghetti and dependent, it gets more and more costly, right? So if it's like if it costs a lot, it means it's inefficient. So for example, in UK government spends 20 billion euro every year on ICT. Just you don't know, Estonian GDP is 17. So the whole Estonian country, it's not the government budget, the GDP. The government budget in Estonia is 8. So the GDP, we create altogether, we create less GDP than the UK government spends on ICT. Okay, so they have 56 million countries, so 56 million people country, so fine. Finland, 2 billion. Okay, they are 5.6 million country. So all the people from mathematics area, I mean, like, makes sense, like, right? What's our number?
0.5.
Sorry?
0.5. Sure. 1.
50 million euros. This includes all the salaries, all the maintenance cost, and all the investment. Now with the European extra money, it's a little bit more than 50. It's like between 50 and 60. It depends on the year. Some years more, some years less. It's 50 million euro. So the difference with Finland only 40 times, with UK 400 times. So even if you do those calculations, then you don't actually have an explanation. But it's actually more beautiful here is that, I mean, like, sorry if you have heard this example so many times, I just have to do one more. I mean, in digital world, countries are actually the same size. The functionality the country needs is the same in every country. It can't be that, like, in Estonian hospital, there is only, if you go in, there's a patient registration, and the next step is symmetry, because it's a small country and we cannot afford too many functions between. But in big country, there is like operations and ER and all that stuff. No. So basically, if you translate to Excel, I mean, like, we all need same amount of columns. The only difference comes from rows. I mean, like, big countries, they have more people. So in a patient registry, the registry has the same amount of functions, but they have more rows. So it basically comes down to scalability question and performance question. So in the time of cloud, talking about scalability and performance as an argument, no. I mean, like, come on. It's like a couple of clicks in the cloud and you have like doubled your performance and scalability. Sorry, I will take my tie off. I mean, like, it's like almost Friday. I don't wear a tie, but today was
what about the number of ministries? Maybe in UK there is more.
Yeah, of course there's more. But that's my point. That's the Big Mac index. That reflects that it's actually more inefficient system. Even if you count in that number, it doesn't reflect. So yes, you're true. But that's the index. That shows that as low as possible, as efficient as possible. And I mean, like, if you think about it, like, for example, Estonia is the best tax collector in the world. We spend least money on tax collection in the world to get one euro.
Also, according to OECD, Estonia also has the best tax code.
Yeah, that's true. But one more example. The organization who has, get rid of most of people during the last 10 years is also tax and custom. So they actually have, not fired, but I sent away more than 130 persons per year. So there are not too many companies who actually can brag about like the same kind of result. So they have, the tax and custom has like become so efficient that they basically fire 130 people every year. Can you name another company in Estonia who does the same? No. So it's not like public sector growing. Actually it grows. But there are some areas who actually do a great job. And one area is tax and custom. So I think the first question in 44 minutes is more or less covered. Why Estonian government sector is not open sourced like others, for example UK? I don't know any government, and I have traveled a lot, and I think I know basically all the government systems available, at least the good ones in the world. I don't know any open source government in the world. So the thing that UK states, the statements are, they are basically, come on guys, if it's open source. They're not. I mean, like, the reason why they pay so much is that mostly all those big players, they basically rape those governments. I mean, like, there's no exchanger in Estonia. And there's a reason why there is no exchanger in Estonia. And the reason is that, you want to correct me? There is exchange.
So if it would be open source, it would be even more cheaper, because all of us would program some more functions.
That's a good idea. That's actually, yeah, we can think about that. I don't believe in that, but we can think about that. But there are like areas of, I mean, like first step towards open source is also, like, for example, the use of open data. I mean, like, and we have failed with that project in Estonia. I mean, like, nobody wants to use it. So as everything is connected in Estonia, the thing that UK is very proud of, like that they take the information out from the system, and then they put it like in with it, like an XML file like into the web and call it open data. And we are doing bad in that in that index, because in Estonia you can directly connect with the system and get real-time data instead of actually going and doing this calculation with the old one. So data is there. The institution is actually willing to share it and just use it, do something. But there's no market in Estonia. And that also comes with open source. I mean, open source always needs some kind of motivation. I mean, yes, Wikipedia succeeded, but even they need some donation. And they are worldwide, they're global. But with small market, especially 1.3 million market with their own language, that's a very limited area. I mean, most of the data in Estonia is not reusable by others or by outsiders, because it's language plays a role. Those data objects, they are not standardized all over Europe. So even if you want, you can't combine data sets. I mean, for example, in Estonia, we only have first name and surname. But in many countries, it's not two fields. It's not two attributes. It's mostly three attributes, like first name, middle name, and surname. So we put middle name together with the first name. So, and that's already the mix-up starts. And if we cannot agree even with the basic data objects like a person object, even if there we cannot standardize, like in Europe-wide, how you start combining that? So gets quite difficult, and if you are not able to monetize that, and in Estonian cases, there are not too many business cases how to make money out of open data, because they are just not users. I mean, the maximum what Finland has created on top of open data is an app called Paikapatra or something like that. So the thing is that if you travel in Finland, especially most of the north side, you can combine your travel map with a map how the deers are actually crossing the roads. So the application actually, it's an open data. So the deers actually, the application says that they actually have 80% probability to hit the deer. That's the most active and useful open source project in Finland. And if even they have 5.6 million people, so it's even if they don't know how to actually use it or make money out of that, how could we? So open source. I mean, I'm proud of the thing that in most cases, at least the applications that are developed during last mostly 10 years are. I mean, if one partner fails, there is another partner or there is another company who actually can take over that code. And then the thing that Estonian development companies, software development companies are actually able to program in a level that another company is able to take over their code is already, it's not open source of course, but it's already a good sign. But we still have some agent stuff. I mean, one of the largest system in Estonia is called Skies, which is like the system through what we actually pay out all the pensions and support money. So 40% of Estonian government budget goes through that system. So it's a very extremely important system. And it's 12 years old, so it goes under our legacy policy and should be wiped off and rebuilt. And they're doing that at the moment because there was a vendor lock and it's very hard to change anything inside that system. I mean, we still have old stuff, but mostly the new one is quite good. So, more questions.
You said a lot about open data, and you mentioned the open source of software, little more than nothing. You say that it's market for open data. You say that if company can write code, that other company can take them, it's good code. But open source could really simplify, even in terms of Estonia only, could simplify crowd security checks. You can just look into the system code and understand why it behaves this way. I'm not talking about features, because they are regulated by laws, but I'm talking about patching. Pull requests, closes, I don't know, buffer overflow, or whatever else. Why not? You have GitHub.
We have more than 900 systems. Sorry?
Git push.
Why?
OpenSSL is open and has been open for 10 years, and it's such a crappy code, and
Yeah.
we have security vulnerabilities like every month. So
At least they are discovered.
well, but I mean, like, there are so many closed systems which are more secure than OpenSSL.
I mean, like, I like that argumentation. I mean, like, I think we can take it like privately afterwards, or like during the break. I like open source, but I like it in very, I say, in the areas where there is not too much code, and in areas where like many people actually have motivation to improve that. So I cannot imagine that, for example, if I actually make the same system that I just talked about, the social benefits payout system, that we actually create this kind of system as an open source. Come on, who will be the architect of that system? Who will do the code reviews? Who will actually take the responsibility the bloody whole thing works? I mean, like, you might be very good and top-level programmer, but if there is an open source, there are also like a bunch of idiots somewhere who always try to do, like, put their, I would say, touch. So in many cases, I mean, like, it might be hard to maintain. There was one question about e-voting, for example, that why not e-voting is open source. Yeah, we can discuss that. Actually, if you want to get the source code, that's open. I mean, like, there is nothing secret about e-voting. So if somebody says that I'm not able to get e-voting source code, that's wrong. I mean, like, they have two levels. There's like one code that's actually like completely open, and you actually can like study. I mean, like, you cannot change that, of course. That's also open source in a way that you actually can change that, but you can look and analyze that. And another point is that you actually can, if you officially register in a voting office, not voting office, but the department who is responsible for that, then you can also get the server side.
I have a question, comments. Actually, I tried to get the source code of X-Road, and although it was even publicly said on the page at some point that it's licensed under some open source license, it's actually...
It's EUPL. Yeah, EUPL. It's a license type of X-Road.
Actually, after 20 mails, they said to me that no. So
You're still working for Nortal?
no.
Oh, sorry. They just got it, the license. I just signed today the agreement that they got the license.
No, but EUPL states that I don't have to sign it.
Yeah, okay, we have different versions. Like with X-Road, it's version 6 already. So 5.5, it's the last one with EUPL. So that code you should get like...
And if they don't give it?
They can't say no because it's EUPL.
I can show you the mail.
But might be that you actually asked from wrong people. So 5.5, which is the version that we don't use anymore, so-called C-based version. Now it's Java-based. So the old version is definitely available. But the new one, I think, it's not under EUPL. It's not European money that was spent there. So the government keeps that license. So, but the old version definitely is available. Do you know how much it costs to rewrite X-Road? From scratch. We have totally new version. Version 6 is in Java, version 5.5 was in C.
1 million euros.
Less than 500K. So just another example of efficient development in Estonia. New version was done by Cybernetica. So if everybody wants to get some kind of ideas or how to solve the problems, contact with Cybernetica people. So I have 5 minutes. So I take the second question. X-Road, dead or alive? Live? More than live. I mean, like, Finland actually implements it at the moment in Finland, the X-Road version 6. So if everything goes well, if their implementation goes well, Estonia and Finland will share the same government architecture principles. I mean, like, we both have the same ID card. The ID card what you use, it's actually copied from Finland, 100%. But we added extreme innovation on top of that. And the innovation was that we made it mandatory. So it wasn't technological innovation, it was like procedural innovation. But this actually made it work. In Finland, you asked me who are the e-residents. Finnish. 45% of e-residents are from Finland. Come on, you have your own. And the card actually works in our systems because it's the same technology. They don't like theirs. They like ours, even though it's the same. So, but now we gave something back. So we copied their ID card. Now we give our X-Road back to them. And it's absolutely sure that this type of decentralized approach with secure data exchange over the public internet will be the road for Europe and other countries also to go. The question was, what's the current situation with e-residency? Do you actually understand why we created that?
No.
I like this. I like this. I mean, like, yeah, it needs PhD level engineering mind to understand that. I totally understand. I totally agree with you. The point is that that in Estonia we are currently in a situation where we already serve Estonians all around the world. I mean, if I say Estonians, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, people who live here. I mean, like, I just call them Estonians. We all live here, we are Estonians. So, but if you are in Silicon Valley, I mean, like, for example, my dear friend Sten Damkivi lives in Silicon Valley, now comes back during the summer back to Estonia, but he was there for many years. But even though he lived in Silicon Valley, I mean, like, it doesn't matter where you live. It actually matters how you feel here. I mean, like, what's your real equation where you want to be connected with, or what's the economical environment with what you actually want to be connected with. So even if you live in Silicon Valley, as we are e-voting, you can obey your citizen duty and you can vote all around the world. So, for example, I don't know the numbers for this parliament election, but last year when we had the European Parliament elections, we got votes from 98 different countries. So, voting, taxing, filling your papers for business, everything, digital signature actually allows you to be part of Estonian society, digital society, location independent. So you don't have to sit and be in Estonia to be part of our society. And we have proved that already using our own Estonians. On the same time, current global situation, especially in our region, influences our economy. I mean, even though the foreign investments in Estonia actually are increasing, we don't get any we get, but we see the decrease of totally the investments that are actually totally new for this market, coming from totally new type of investor. I mean, so there is some kind of uncertainty in this region at the moment. I mean, if I would like to say to you that I actually have some real estate in East Ukraine at the moment you want to buy, then most probably you say no. I mean, because there's uncertainty in that region, and then there is an uncertainty in all this region. So, from Minister of Economy, I have to think about how to increase the economy in Estonia. And the first duty for the Estonian government is, of course, to take care of their own people, but it's also important that we want to grow the wealth of Estonians. So, but here we have actually a problem. I mean, if you think about the economy. And if I say economy, it's not the thing what happens here in Estonia. It's also how our companies are actually connected with other countries and other companies. What is the export amounts? What are the import amounts? It's the whole thing how our businesses are connected with others. if you take the Estonian economy 2013 November, for example, and now 2015 April, I mean, like, because of the sanctions, whatever, I mean, like, many companies lost their market in Russia. I mean, like, the overall, I say, investment climates, even though it grows, it still has some uncertainty. So we can say that actually the economy and the relationship what we had in November 2013 is actually bigger than what we have now because of the sanctions. And Russia was the 8th largest business partner for Estonia. So it wasn't nothing. It was quite huge, 8th largest. So we can say that it was bigger before than it's now. But how you can increase wealth if the market where you actually act becomes smaller? So in every company, I mean, like, there's a simple rule. I mean, like, of course, it's not 100% in this way, but it's mostly, if you want to get more revenue, you need more customers. I mean, like, that's obvious. I mean, like, if you have more customers, you have more potential to sell more and you earn more profit. Our economy has decreased. So how we can increase the wealth if the economy decreases? Of course, you can optimize. But even if you think already, like, for example, our ICT budget, there are not too much room to optimize anymore. And I have seen the position where the company optimizes themselves so much that you actually lose ability to invest because you have, like, optimized everything. Most probably the CEO kills in the end of the story because he's not needed anymore. I mean, like, so, but we need more customers. So, I mean, like, there are not too many ways to increase customers of Estonia, like the citizens or the people who are connected with Estonia. First choice is basically, you know, I mean, like, if you want to become 10 million Estonians country, I mean, our first choice is, okay, let's start produce children. That's a choice. Those are my children. So I went to my lady and said, like, you know, I mean, like, I need this 10 million, like, so can we at least like push a little more? Like, we have 3 already, but maybe, like, and I mean, like, I was basically kicked out from the house, like, like, come on, guys, like, that job's closed, like, so no more, or maybe a couple, but you can't get like 10 million with that. But there are countries who actually can. I mean, like, Egypt grows their population. Egypt is 90 million country, and Egypt grows their population with 1 Estonia every year. 1.5 million extra every year. That's a possibility. That's why one way how you can do, you can increase the population, just push hard. Yeah. So, having just made a scientific study with my wife, and that wasn't the choice. So another option is, and that has been used mostly in Europe and then all the rich countries, is immigration. I mean, like, you know that if, for example, if US really deals with Mexican problems and gets rid of all Mexicans, that economy goes down big times. So they actually don't want to deal with the Mexican problems. And if you think about Germany or Italy or France, yes, they complain about immigration, but that has actually solved their growth problems. New people, even in Sweden or Finland, new people coming in, new jobs are created, works. But in our case, even if the Muhammad thinks about going to the north, what's his choice? I mean, like, there is Norway. On the same, we have this latitude of Alaska, if you didn't know it. Latitude of Alaska. Norway, Sweden, Estonia. If you live 5 years in Norway, you get the government pension. And let me remind you that before Second World War, Estonia was a richer country than Norway or Finland. Our construction workers and businessmen actually built houses to orphans in Norway. They still remember that, actually. So, Norway, huge benefits. Sweden, benefits. Estonia, No benefits. So what's your choice? There's a limit. How many immigrants can come to Estonia? There's a limit. 1,200. That number is never reached. And the actual decrease is minus 5,000 every year. And that's official statistics. So if you feel that official statistics sometimes might be wrong, then definitely the number should be bigger than less. I mean, like, so our population decreases every year by 5,000. We have a limit, and we have never reached that. Even when they sold the living permits to Russian oligarchs, even during that period, they couldn't reach that number. So that's never reached. So I have bad news to you. Nobody wants to come. But we still want to grow the wealth, right? We still want to pay more salaries and increase the revenue of this, or the GDP of Estonia. So if Muhammad is not willing to come to the mountain has to go to Muhammad, right? So that's the first reason. That's the basic logic why Estonia needs to create something totally different. So that's the first answer why we need e-residency. So yes, we created that. I mean, who said that you actually have to live in Estonia? If you don't want to come here, fine. Do you want to be part of that? Ukrainian painter wants to sell his paintings in Germany. Even if the German likes the paintings, no way they could actually transfer money. It's a company that can be run, or the bank account that can be run or accessed from distance. I see a business case. I see a business. Number one, currently, who had actually officially applied and got the e-residency. Number one is Finland. Number two is Russia. Number three is Ukraine. Number four is Latvia. And that goes. Why those countries? Because in first 4 months we were in beta phase, so we actually officially had to come physically to Estonia twice to get it. So it was a huge hassle. But even it was huge hassle, we this year goal was 2,000. If there are journalists in the audience, who said that how the hell you can get 10 million, if you don't get 1,000 with every minute, and then you show the Facebook model and that's how it goes. That's how it goes. But the funny thing is that we don't need 10 million. The point is that in Estonia we actually have 50,000 active companies. Those are companies who actually do some kind of transactions every month. There are 120,000 companies in total, but around 50,000 who actually do some business. And 39,000 from those are companies who are doing less than 5 transactions that goes over 1,000 euro. You might guess where I got this information. So, what it means that the Estonian economy is basically micro companies economy. Companies for 1 man or 2 man companies. So we have been actually, even though if it's not has been we have actually fixed or built our society in this way that we actually are able to serve mostly the micro ones. So now if you want to see what happens in the world trend and then how the world is changing, it's a very important trend that actually happens in the world at the moment. It's called the Freelancer Trend. And Business Insider, for example, has estimated that by 2020 in US, 40% of US workforce will be freelancers, so-called one-man companies who provide global services. or if not global, but not only in that location they particularly are. And that's not only US trend, it's a world trend. If you're a drummer in a music band, you're not a drummer. You're like OU drummer. And you play like in this band and that band because your skill is drumming. And you sell your skills in many places. And you actually need some kind of like convenient, hassle-free management for those kind of services, especially if you have global services. If you provide global services. In India, there is a huge thing if you can say that you actually have a company in Europe and bank account. Please transfer that money to my European bank account. It doesn't matter there is no employees in that company. It doesn't matter. There's a European company. And they're like, I have like bank account in Luxembourg. For obvious reasons. I mean like, if you earn like a lot of money, I mean like you put some in Luxembourg. Do you still, you know that to actually run that money, I need to send the fax. I'm not able to send the fax, I don't know how to use the machine. I mean, I don't know how many zeros I have to, I know that the paper should be upside down, etc. But I mean like, I don't know how many zeros I have to take to actually call like to Luxembourg. I mean, first zero to get outside from the building and then double zeros, I'm like. So what I do, I print out like, please buy me like 5,000 Apple shares. So I print out that task, then I sign it, then I picture it, and then I send the picture to Luxembourg. And then after like a couple of days, there is like response, yes, we did it. Thank you, the price is wrong now. I want to be in charge of my own bank account. I want to be in charge of my own company. I don't want to run my company through somebody. I don't like that because I'm not the oligarch. So if that money is lost, I'm quite sad. I would like to I would like actually want to like feel that I'm owning my money. I want to feel that feeling. So I want to run this company. And there is no solution on the market until now. And I mean like we have like 20,000 people in the waiting list. And the study shows we send like to 10,000 we send emails like why? Why? Yes, we know it's cool, but why? And more than 60% from them said business. Okay, let's do some calculations. 60% from 20,000. If we could get 12,000 micro-type companies more connected with the Estonian economy, which at the moment is 50,000 companies. Gentlemen, ladies, do your math. Do you understand now why we need this? And the beauty of this, it costs zero. I mean like, yes, the landing page, that cost us 2,000 euros. Not 100,000 like this Riigikogu.ee. I mean like, yeah. It costs 2,000 euros, the landing page. Of course we need to do some policy changing, etc. We're still arguing, but I can be absolutely sure that the cost, if I write that the cost was maximum 500K, I'm safe. I mean, like it wasn't. I think it's like around 100K, but let's say it was 500K. The international publicity what we got during last year and this year, I mean, like CNN, BBC, basically like all the major kind of like magazines, TV, radio shows, they all actually talked about this. And we didn't even hire any marketing specialist, any campaign, nothing. We haven't like programmed anything because we already had the system. Mobile ID is nothing, not mobile ID, but the e-Residency is nothing more than DigiID. If some of you have, there is two ways to get ID card. There is a picture one and DigiID without picture one. So e-Residency is actually DigiID. The card without the picture. It's not a travel document, but you can use for everything inside the computer. Yes, there was a huge innovation in IT. We actually added one tag in the end of I mean, like if you read from the card, the attributes. Yes, we added one attribute that says, this is an e-resident. That's the only programming we did. So it costs nothing, even if it fails, and it doesn't increase like any tax income or like no company in Estonia gets any extra customers, nothing. Come on. Even the publicity is already like worth more. I mean like it has got more attention than the Welcome to Estonia or any laulupidu or something has created like ever. So I mean like, if you ask me why, I ask you back, why not? If we have a chance, why not to do it? Yes, it's the first time in the world. Yes, Singapore and Dubai will follow us soon. I already know that. I just came from Singapore. They're hiring me. I'm not going. So, I mean like, there's a huge potential. And if you think about it, I mean like, what Delaware did, Delaware is a like small state in East Coast in US. It's like smaller than Estonia. And they are the 7th wealthiest state in US. And if you ask us like, what actually connects Zero Turnaround, Facebook, Google, Apple, Coca-Cola, transfer-wise, what connects those companies? It's that state, Delaware. They're all incorporated in that state. Because of business law, historical taxes, now it's more business law. Even though Coca-Cola has their official headquarters in Atlanta, Facebook, Apple in Silicon Valley, Zero Turnaround, I hope still in Tartu. So even they all have their headquarters somewhere else. They actually incorporated in Delaware because that state understood that the world needs a business law that everybody can trust. So, and that was created in year 1894 or 96. So in the 19th century, that idea to Delaware came from 19th century. Take Switzerland, 1934, they introduced a new bank law that stated that the secret between the patient and the doctor is as good if the banker and the customer talks. I mean, like, that should be the same kind of secret. So we don't ask where the money comes from, even if it comes from Nazi Germany. Yes, it's bad. It has always been bad. I mean, Delaware also it was like tax cheating before it found the real life. I mean, like, think about Bitcoin. What was the reason for Bitcoin going like this? You know that? Money from narcotics. And when when they understood that you get rid of the bad stuff, but you have a business. So that's the Switzerland model. You get rid of the bad money, but you are rich already. So in the beginning, it might be like some kind of gray area, but now it's like, wow. Luxembourg. Juncker says that he didn't do any tax agreements with the companies who wanted to come to get to Luxembourg. I mean, like, according to the international tax laws, the tax should be paid in country where the value was created. So if you take, for example, Skype, the value was created, at least not in Luxembourg. They blame any other country, but not Luxembourg. Who got the money? Luxembourg. So I mean, like, there's always like somebody who actually gets the understanding, follows the same thing, that they actually need to grow their economy, and to grow they cannot grow it through the people that actually live there. They need to try something else with them. We have our opportunity, and that's the point. I mean, like, that's the point that we only need actually not 10 million, but we actually need 10,000, and already 10,000 makes difference. And we are almost there. I mean, like, not today, but the official goal of the government is 2,000 users to the end of this year. The real number, I think, will be between 4,000 and 5,000. So we get basically 100 new customers every week for our banks, or for our auditing companies, or for our banking ERP companies. I mean, like, if you're an Indian and if you create a company in Estonia, you still need some services. So you still need some support. I mean, like, come on, like, is there a company in Estonia you can actually take the hassle away? I mean, like, so I would like to run my bank account, but please, all these yearly books and all that stuff, please take care of that. Okay, now it's like, we still need humans for doing that, but I mean, like, we're not far from the situation where, for example, if your business doesn't include or involve any cash transaction, only bank transaction, we are so close with Estonian tax and custom to have a solution where we don't actually, like the small companies or micro companies, don't have to do any tax declaration at all. So, for example, if you think about it, that if you categorize your bank statement, that, okay, this was the salary payment, this was in company income, like, if you categorize them in the right way, and those patterns actually start to reflect, and as I said, most of those companies have less than 5 transactions per month. If you categorize it in the right way, you actually can create all those tax reports, like, so they don't actually need any humans between. So you can automate. So it means that it's scalable. We can scale here. So that's the e-Residency, like a big idea. I mean, like the growing economy. Yes, aim high, promise low. That's the basic of startup. And I mean, like, the essay I wrote like a year ago, if I wrote there, okay, let's have 10,000 e-residents. I mean, come on, who follows that? But 10 million, that's a number to follow. Even if you go if you can get 10,000, it's 20% of our current economy. And as it doesn't take any cost, it's cool. Sorry, I have wasted my time. But yeah, but please also do some babies. Yeah, that's also important. So thank you. Yeah.